Sure.
All right, welcome back to Running with the Wolves, episode 8. It's me and Dustin. We're back again. Today, guys, we're here to bring you everything in the track and field and cross-country world, everything from high school track and field all the way to ultra running. Today, we have a special guest and our first coach, head coach of FSU, Bob Braman. And we're going to be talking today basically about, what it's like to train with FSU, the excellence they produce, and his own aspects of what it's like to be a coach versus an athlete. With that said, Dustin, take it away.
All right, so Coach, again, thank you for coming on. I guess first off, it's current. How are you feeling about this season, and what are you looking forward to?
Yeah, well, I directly coach the men's cross country. I don't coach the women's, but I'll comment more on the guys. We're a little rough getting started where we had some really good athletes that have been dinged up, and then Stephen Cross had a respiratory issue that's just taken a while to work its way out. We're starting to see the real Stephen Cross, and the other guy, Michael Calgary, had surgery last year and missed his whole track season. He was looking pretty good, and there's always some residual from those kind of injuries. It's not like a small little stress reaction. He had real surgery, labral tear, and so as a result of that, he's in the catch-up mode. But he's starting to roll along a little bit too. And I think we started to see at Wisconsin last weekend where 23rd out of 35 isn't where we want to be, but we beat some ranked teams like Virginia, Illinois, Wisconsin, and did a pretty good job. And I think with the same effort, if I would have adjusted the training regardless of where all those guys are, if I would have sharpened up a little bit, probably in the top 15, which would have been a lot more wins. But you can choose your poison in this process. You can chase wins early and try to feel pretty good about it. But at the end of the day, you got to run 2 10Ks in 8 days at the end. And I've told the guys every year I've coached, I don't want to go to nationals and be out of gas and get last place. If that's going to happen, let's just stay home and not do it. Let's do it the right way. Let's train for the end of the year, not the end of the week. And so that's what we've done. And I think one of the encouraging observations from Wisconsin for our guys is that, Cross ran a negative split. I mean, who does that in cross country? Or certainly a Wisconsin invite with, a sea of humanity you're trying to run through. Who runs a negative split from the first 4K to the second 4K? And then Stanley Linton was almost dead even. Michael Hall was almost dead even. Calgary was almost dead even. A couple of guys ran a typical fast first half and a little bit of a fade on the second half, because that's what cross country is. It's not like track. You don't get the big negative splits. They're, on the track, every world record's a negative split. I'm not so sure we see a lot of that in cross country, particularly if it's an honest race, which it was. They went out, the leaders were 4:44, 4:45, unlike Wisconsin a year ago, where they went out in 5 minutes, So it was a legit pace, and I thought our guys did pretty well. They didn't panic, moved our way through, and those even splits tell me 2 things. 1, they kept their head, they didn't panic, and 2, that they really have a good LT base that allowed them to run negative in a cross-country race, which is pretty unusual. So now we throw in some of the anaerobic work. So, mile repeats, 2K repeats. We've only done 2 anaerobic sessions, and they've come on the week of Notre Dame. We did 5 times a mile. That sure as heck isn't much speed. And then we did the same thing the week of Wisconsin. And that Monday, if you were in Florida, was a humidity blanket. And it was really a tough session. So I wasn't sure how we were going to come through Wisconsin, if we were going to be a little beat up, a little tired. But you have to take your lumps and be ready at the end, and you have to train for 10K. So I think we've checked those boxes. We're doing 5 times a 2,000-meter repeat workout tomorrow morning with some really nice weather, by the way, knock on wood. And then we're going to come back and do our first real speed, doing 8 times a 1,000-meter repeat on Sunday. So those will be hard, but it'll give us enough time to kind of roll into ACCs for the first time all year, not tired coming into the meet.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's the overview. Probably more information than you need.
Well, never complain about too much information. So what is this team drawing parallels to as a team you've coached in the past? I know some people have read it's almost like the 2012 team or 2011 team, right?
Well, when we started the season, it reminded me of the 2012 team where we were ranked 18th and we got 5th. Mm-hmm. I think the talent is similar to that. But that team had a lot more experience, and we had banged up pieces like Wes Rickman was hurt most of the year, and he came through at the meet, did a good job. Dave Forrester, Dave's been a top 20 finisher, and on that day he was maybe 60th, but he did it, with a lot of guts and experience. So I don't know that we're that level because of experience. Those guys knew how to manage their way through those things. The other thing is the 2012 team had some low sticks where we had Jacob Zivich, who was 18th, and Brendan O'Neill, good Irishman, was 28th. So we still had those low sticks that we don't really have unless they emerge in the next 4 weeks on this team. Mm-hmm. This team's a little deeper, 6 or 7 guys who could all have the ability to finish in the top 100, which is very good, the NCAA meet. But it reminds me, Dustin, I think more of 2 years ago where we were not inside the top 20 at Wisconsin. We were 5th in the ACC meet, which I think we're probably 4th or 5th ranked right now. But we won the region, and our 5th man was 16th place.
Yeah.
And Stanley Litton, who was on that team, reminded our guys that, one of the key guys in that team, Grant Nyakeza, he was so tired and beat up, he dropped out of Wisconsin, comes back, a month later and finishes 16th in the region. We won pretty nicely that day. I think we had a front stick at 4th place, but then we went, 12, 13, 14, 16. And if we had to score Mike Hall, who was a younger athlete then, as a backup, Mike was in the mid-20s, and we still would have made it automatically in that team.
Yeah.
So I see that same kind of team. Our lactic threshold work that we've done, the long LT work that we put in, very, very similar to that team. So I need to make sure that I keep pushing them and make sure we can stay healthy and not go the wrong way and have to try to, pop one. I will say that team in 2015 that won the region, it took a big effort that day. Mm-hmm. And I think that was tiring for us at the national meet 8 days later.
Yeah.
So kind of hoping that somehow, some way, we're going to be stronger than that team and be able to be perhaps top 20 team at the national meet.
Yeah.
You're not a top 20 team if you're not there. So first things first.
You get in there, yeah, for sure.
Good.
All right, Christian, you want to go ahead and ask me?
Yeah, I think something that I've always found interesting, and you said something, training in such humid conditions as it is in Florida. How do you prepare for going upstate when it's usually really cold at the national meet? How do you prepare your guys for that when it doesn't drop below the 50s in Florida?
Yeah, we've not been burned too badly on that, where, of course, we had the Northern Iowa meet in 2004 where it was minus 13 wind chill. And Luke Beaver, our good friend Dustin, he was on that team as a freshman and ran great. Our guys are from all over the place, So we've got Northeastern guys, we've got a British guy, we got a guy from Hungary, and we've got some Florida kids as well. So I don't know. I think sometimes so much of that is in your psyche and your, do you go into it feeling handicapped, or do you go into it feeling that any resistance that we come up against is to our benefit because it levels the playing field? So as a runner myself, I was not overly talented. So anytime it was muddy, rainy, tactical, bad conditions of any kind, I felt like that pulled me into a closer position than I would be on a perfect day when Justin Knight and Grant Fisher and the 3 Alabama guys are going to take it out in 4:25. I can't do that. And I don't know that my athletes fall into that category as well. So we kind of like the the challenges and difficulties. But I've always said, Christian, that, and I grew up in Tampa, so I've got a lot of experience with heat and humidity. Coached 35 years collegiately, 2 years of high school, and 5 years of running in college, 4 of them in Florida. So I have a lot of experience with heat and humidity, and quite often this time of year, it can be a humidity, not a heat. And so you have to respect it. You have to know what the drag on your engine is. It's not too different from training in altitude. So you've got a resistance training that the work is maybe 15 to 20% more valuable than the time and distance shows you. Mm-hmm. So that experience that I have, that understanding of when I'm dragging the engine too hard, and of course we monitor their ferritin levels, which is the first thing that's going to drop with, foot strike anemia, high mileage, high humidity, fatigue, those kind of things. It's going to show up in your ferritin. It's one of the many things that show up. So we monitor that pretty good. The other thing we do, and my kids actually like it, is 5 days a week we train in the morning. Okay. So nobody has a class at 8 o'clock. So the earliest class we have on Mondays and Wednesdays and Fridays, that second period is like 9, 10 a.m. So we're not getting up at 5 a.m. or anything. We're 6:45, 7 a.m. So it's not real super early to get on the trails and get our work done. So if it's a hard session, we're departing campus on our vans at 6:30. If it's an easy D aerobic session, we're leaving at 7. Because on Tuesday and Thursday, the second class period is 9:30. So we're not going to be overly worn down by that. And then so we go mornings on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. Wednesday's our light speed day, which we do on the IM fields, and they do it on their own. It's a recovery day. Obviously it's active recovery because you're doing 4 miles distance. Maybe 4 sets of 3x200, easy, medium, hard on the grass. So you're doing some speed maintenance, some form work, some fluidity. But our veterans run that practice, and they usually go in 2 sections, and rarely, if ever, are they doing that in the morning. Saturday's our long run, and we'll move that long run based on the conditions. So this week we're doing our hard session on Thursday, so our long run's actually going to be on Friday. Saturday will be a recovery run. We're going to go maybe 7:30, depending on our class schedule. Friday's pretty light, and it's going to be beautiful. It was 54 degrees this morning. So we make those adjustments. And years ago, I asked our guys, back in our heyday, 2010, 2011, 2012, we finished 2nd, 12th, and 5th in those 3 years of national championship. I said, okay, guys, it's October. The weather's better. Why don't we flip a couple of those sessions to the afternoon? And the guys said, no. We like the morning sessions because we can do our weights on Tuesday, Thursday, and our second run Tuesday, Thursday in the afternoons, and now we're eating dinner at 6 o'clock, and we're not dragging that into a later time. So they're able to recover, relax after dinner. They're not trying to catch up on studies, or they've already taken care of that during the day because we opened it up. So it's been a pretty good system. Young guys have to get adjusted to it, but that's what we do. I'm sure every climate, everybody does things that meet their needs that fit that. But our weather just gets better and better, and so that's what we do.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. All right, so a little bit more towards the training, to pick your brain a little bit more. What training tree do you guys fall under? Obviously, there's Jack Daniels and some others. Jack Daniels being obviously my preferred, but
yeah. So I'm uniquely fortunate in my career. So I started University of Tennessee. The head coach was Stan Huntsman, head Olympic coach 1988. Transferred to University of Florida after the year, and Jimmy Carnes was the head Olympic coach. We didn't go in 2000. On that staff was Brooks Johnson, who was the head Olympic coach. My high school coach, Jerry Slavin, was at University of Florida in grad school during the time that Frank Shorter, Jack Batchelor, Barry Brown and those guys were there when the Florida Track Club would win the national championship. He was my high school coach through my junior year. My senior year in high school, my head coach was Tom Jones. Tom Jones was a long-time head coach at the University of Florida on the women's side, world championship coach. Then there's a guy named Roy Benson you might be familiar with, was a distance coach at Florida. He was the heart rate monitor guru who started that whole thing. And then my senior year, my last 3 semesters at Florida, John Randolph came in, head coach, and he was at Army, but he ran at William & Mary under the legend Harry Groves. So Brooks Johnson was a sprint coach at Florida when I was there, but Brooks took us through all the drills, all the training. He was one of the first guys to kind of hound the distance coaches about the lack of speed work and how stupid that was for us not to train that energy system. So that was my collegiate and high school, which is massive, learning. And when I came out in 1980, coached myself, I used the Bill Dillinger system. So I got Dillinger's book, and Dillinger coached Prefontaine, Salazar, Rudy Chapa, Centrowitz, some of those guys. So I used that book to coach myself and learn a little bit. And then in 1988, I hired for my first full-time women's coach Jack Daniels' wife, Nancy Daniels, at the University of South Florida. So I spent that 6 months picking Jack's brain, and I have all of his old materials from the early to mid 80s that he culminated in his professional coaching beyond his collegiate coaching in the mid to late 80s. And so I've got his typewriter hunt and peck stuff and his handwritten pyramid that you might know, Dustin. I use that at camp to show it to you. So I use all that. The other guy that was a real mentor to me was Joe Vigil. Joe and I began a friendship when my South Florida team won the Minnesota GRIAC meet in 1991. Adams State, Joe Vigil was second, and we beat Wisconsin, Penn State, all those ranked teams, and we were ranked 5th in the country at the time. So Joe and I kind of shared this underdog role. And Christian, kind of to your question, we won that Minnesota invite, and we're on the award stand, and it started snowing. So imagine the South Florida Bulls on the award stand, bullhorns up and snow's coming down. So obviously we overcame, at least cold weather that day.
Yeah.
The snow didn't come to the award ceremony. So I shaped all of my coaching on those experiences, because Joe Vigil's got a book called Road to the Top, and it's a really good manual almost to the physiology, because he's a physiologist, and the psychology, and because Joe's a phenomenal motivator as well. So I use that plus all of my lab rats over the years to put my program. And I like Daniels a lot, but I only use Daniels to center my program so that I'm in the appropriate energy systems. Okay, we're trying to do anaerobic work. You two guys might be different. How do we apply that? And how do we apply those principles in different events, from 1,500, and I do some 800 coaching as well, to 10,000 meters in cross country. So our phases of training are very important, and that's the Dillinger system. It's a progression. Everything should lead to the next thing. And then the other Dillinger principle is adaptation. So how does the body adapt to the stress you place on it? If you do it appropriately, not only will it respond to that stimulus, but it does what's called an overcompensation. So you have that bounce that you get from doing it correctly, where you actually get more than you put into the training. It's kind of that overcompensation that your body does. So we're always in this world of stressing the athletes, giving them recovery, and how do we place that within the context of our training? And so on Seminoles.com, the outline of my program exists. I don't hide that from anybody. This December, I'm going to take this whole program at the coaches convention and just break it all down and expose it out there to the young coaches that want it. I don't know that there are a lot of secrets in this game, but if I can provide some of my experiences plus and minus to how to do this thing, then, maybe I leave this sport and hopefully, knock on wood, 10 more years, I leave this sport better than I found it to the young coaches that came through my program or heard me lecture.
Absolutely. Christian, anything you want to add?
Anyway, that's a lot of stuff.
No, I actually like that. I like what you said at the end, because I think, I was just talking about this with Dustin 2 days ago. Mo Farah, after his 2015 Prefontaine invite, he said they kept asking him questions about his tactics in the race, and he wouldn't give anything on it because he didn't want to spoil. And I don't blame him. He's trying to go for several medals. But you were just talking about how you're going, knock on wood, 10 years from now, you'll leave the sport better than you found it, and you'll give your information to other young coaches. So I'm going to take it as, do you see running more as a sport of beneficial, of helping everybody, or do you want it to be really, I would guess, winning based, trying to win medals just for your school?
I think you'll see today that the science at the collegiate level, we're probably in the 95% agreement, certainly 90%. How do you periodize those athletes is very individual, okay? And the experience and the age and the durability of your athlete is a big part of that. So we have different ideas of volume, we have different ideas of recovery, but we know why we do those things. One of the things that I'm going to talk about at convention is the value of lactic threshold training. And the things that I've learned through some of the USATF conventions that I was part of, distance summits, and things that I learned from physiologists that went and studied the Eastern Africans versus the rest of the world. What was the difference between, even a really good program in the U.S. or Europe or England or wherever. And, I have ideas about how much LT plays a role in that. They might be a little bit different. Some of that I've kept to myself, except to my athletes. And I'm just going to throw it out there and let people buy it, steal it, use it, throw it away, laugh at it. I don't care. I think excellence in coaching is about relationships. And I'm not everybody's perfect coach. Everybody's different. There are people that need a drill sergeant that'll kick their butt and hold them highly accountable. And that's never been my style. And that's the main reason about 10 years ago that I fired myself as women's distance coach at Florida State and hired Karen Harvey. Karen was that high discipline, high accountability, almost good and bad, militaristic type coach. Women are much more structure oriented historically. They want to know when they're doing it, how they're doing it, why they're doing it, and the whole process. And then they want to talk about what just happened after it's done. Dudes are not that way. Guys are like, let's get after it. Do you believe in me? What do you think my ceiling or my capabilities are? And, collectively, what can we do? So I fit into the latter category a little bit better because that's the kind of athlete I was. So I think I was a very good women's coach. We were first team ever at Florida State history to make it to the NCAAs in cross country in my last year. They were 17th in the country. We had 2 All-Americans. I felt pretty good about that with about a 4.5 scholarship investment. But we had an opportunity, and I'm the head track coach as well, for me to hire a women's coach, spend more time with the guys, and manage the program. And that made us better as a whole. And the first year that Coach Harvey came in, with the same girls I had, they finished 3rd in the country. So surround yourself with great people. Recognize that people can make your job better and the organization better. Now, I did leave her with some pretty good athletes. Hannah England, the NCAA record holder, world silver medalist at 1500, Barbara Parker, steeplechase Olympian, and Susan Kuiken, who continues to be an Olympic finalist, double finalist in London. So I didn't leave the cupboard very bare, but she did a fantastic job. And Coach Phillips now is rebuilding because she was left really with not a lot of young talent.
Mm-hmm.
And Coach Phillips, who worked with me in South Florida, I know she'll do the job. And in the interim, she gets beat up because she's not bringing top 10 finishes home. Well, it takes a while. And, we're rebuilding the men's side where we're not 2010, 2011, 2012. We made a conscious decision to shift some funding to sprints and field events so that we could rebuild that. And I think we're getting ready to be really special, both men and women, in track and field this year. And I think that the future is going to be very bright and very similar to what we've done, top 10 and podium teams. That is coming at Florida State, and it's all going to be culminated in the national championship on our course in 2021. So that's a pretty cool goal for these young kids who are committing to us to aspire to. Sure. And it's always easier to walk in somebody else's footsteps. So if you go to a factory where they're going to spend 8, 9, 10, 12 scholarships on distance, and you go into the meat grinder and you just follow in that, you might be successful, you might not, but you're not doing anything unique or original, but it's much more difficult and maybe a lot more fun to put down your own footsteps for others to follow in. And that's what, our 06, 07, 08 national championship track teams did. That's what guys like Tom Lancashire, Kieran Olenard, Andrew Lemoncello, all those elite guys, Luke Gunn, all those guys who ran for me, who made Olympic and world teams after Florida State, NCAA runner-ups. I didn't have a champion, but I had seconds and thirds and stuff. Those guys were special people, and they set that distance background that never existed prior to that at that level. So that's a pretty cool thing, and because you do that, you can walk into an NCAA championship ranked 18th and believe you can finish in the top 5 like we did.
Yeah, for sure.
So for me, that's a lot of fun. For others, they want to be on a team that's already been built and, is a guarantee X or guarantee Y. And as you know, there's no guarantees in this business. So it's a tougher sell, but it's a lot more fun when you can do that together.
That's. I think me and Dustin had talked about this. When I was going to my senior year, he was going to his junior, and I was looking at schools to run for, and I said, we both agreed on, pick a school that suits, you the best. I think, Dustin's senior class, you had like 12, 17 guys who were by flow track were seeded to go possibly sub 4 in the mile. And I mean, we both called it, they all picked schools like Oregon, BYU, NAU, Stanford, and that's great because they have built programs, but you do watch these athletes like Nick Simmons who go to like a D3 or D2 school. They come up and they start running, 143s in the 800. And when they interviewed Nick Simmons, they said, I went to a place where, I didn't have as many fast guys to run with, but I had the program and the coaching I need. He goes, and like you said, you can go to a factory and you can get it built the way that they build everybody, but I think having that individualized training, is going to, tweak you better. And when it comes down to Olympic racing, you do have to find every Olympic racer is a unique athlete. It's not your run-of-the-mill high school or anything like that who just has natural or just, the work has pushed them there. Like, Mo Farah, a lot of guys are, time-wise faster than him from East Africa, but why is it he goes into races and wins? And he tweaked himself and he picked programs that, even some people didn't quite understand what he was doing when he left the British team, and, it worked out for him. So I think it's very unique, that aspect that you take that from. And so before we just hit our final question, I was going to ask, with your athletes who go on to world championship prospects and Olympic teams and things like that, do you treat them differently at all when they're with your normal team, or do you treat them like every other guy with just a little bit more work involved?
Well, I think that your coach-athlete relationship is what it is, and so if Kieran is used to me giving him a hard time and, chastising him when he needs it, that's the way I'm going to treat him in front of the other guys. I also think that, you do need to show in front of the other guys that this guy's earned it, this guy deserves my respect because of what he's done. And I think most smart coaches do that. So, and the other thing is we have to be not egotists. We have to realize, okay, I know you interviewed Colleen Quigley. Well, Colleen in her last year, even after Coach Harvey left, had her best year ever with our coaches who were here, which was Josh Seitz and Terry Long. Terry being a world-class hurdle coach and a phenomenal coach, and Josh Seitz, who was just a really great assistant under Karen, who was very communicative and very supportive. Those guys did a phenomenal job in Colleen's last year. You can make a pretty good argument that Colleen should have stayed in Tallahassee, but she had a really great opportunity with Bowerman, with a phenomenal coach and some opportunities that go beyond the sport, whether it's, modeling, promotions, being in the Nike mecca, if you will. And obviously Jerry Schumacher was a steeplechaser himself, a really good one at Wisconsin. In fact, he was a rival of one of my guys at South Florida. So nothing but respect for Jerry. And Colleen looked around and she connected with him and felt like that'd be a quick transition, and it has been for her. And like anybody else, she's had little injuries along the way, but you're not going to be great if you don't push that window. And Colleen, we handled her well here where we didn't close that window. She was ready to take another step. Each year she took on more and more. And I think we did a good job of not destroying her, say, with too many races in indoor track. And she, of course she was 427 or whatever indoors that year when, the girl at Michigan State and Shelby at Arizona State, they all killed it and ran ridiculously fast for the mile. But then Colleen's next race, was, all the way to end of April, to qualify. And that served her well because she could win NCAAs and make the world team. So we've done a good job of protecting our athletes that way. But like Tom Lancashire had a phenomenal career with me, ran 145, and we didn't even train for the 800, NCAA runner-up. But his opportunities in England, I could debate all day whether he'd run faster for me, but the opportunities for Tom were there back in the UK, and completely, with my blessing, did that. Same thing for Kieran, when Kieran had the Nike Oregon Project opportunity. Again, I think I'm the best coach for him, not Alberto, but there were some opportunities that gave him that chance to be great and to really push it as far as he could. And he has some physical limitations where he's had 2 Achilles surgeries, and, no pun intended, that's been his Achilles heel. So, everybody's different, but we support their ability and their opportunity to go out and do that. We've had, lots and lots of field event and sprint kids stay here in Tallahassee and work with our coaches. And if they do that, they have all of our support: sports medicine, sports nutrition, strength and conditioning. They want to go on and do more academics with, master's degrees. Everything they want, including coaching, if they want it, is available here. And then when we have 15, 16 athletes at the World Championships like we just did, that carries the Florida State brand further and further and further, and we're certainly proud of that.
Yeah,
well,
for sure.
That was an fantastic input, and the reason I kind of, you said something that I wasn't even going to ask, but I was looking at Instagram and all the athletes I follow, and 3 athletes in particular, you said they go on, your athletes go on to like Oregon Project and Bowerman, and that is great, I think, because, they probably see it as, oh wow, a professional team wants me and stuff, but I think you do have to find, what fits for you. And, Casimir Loxam, our 800-meter guy, he was now back in Penn State. Robbie Andrews, our Olympian 1,500, 800 guy, he's back in training with Virginia Tech right now. Sam Shalanga, the record holder for Liberty, the school I go to, he's coming back and starting to train with us a little. And you see these athletes that are starting to come back to college because they realize, oh, my coach, when they got me there, like, that wasn't just the door, it was the NCAA. They can take me farther than that. And it just was coming with experience. So I'm glad you said something like that because I think that does make a difference, is staying in college and being close to home where you're at, that there can be a winning formula for you. And I think who said it best? Conor McGregor, UFC guy. They asked him, hey, why didn't you go train with real pros after you did your minor little thing in Crumlin? He said, my coaches knew what they were doing with me. They may have never even trained like even a semi-professional guy, but I knew what they were doing. And now he's a 2-belt holder and fighting Floyd Mayweather, and it works. So thank you for that. And with that said, with our I think our last question is, what does running mean for you? What is more than just a sport and just as a coach? What has it done for you in your own personal life?
And running as well.
Well, it's been everything. It's been my career, and it's just been everything to me. My wife was a runner. I met her in high school running cross country, and so it's been a lot of years because we're in our late 50s. So yeah, that's been huge for me. My youngest son was a runner. People that have run for me or I've run for, their coaches and whatnot. It's a real neat existence beyond the career and all that stuff. It really is like family. We have so many, people that have come through our program, and they come back and they're doing great professionally in so many other ways. It's opened doors and opportunities, not just for me, but for people that have come run for me or, jumped and thrown for me, that they get the opportunity to go all over the world and meet people they never would meet. I think, we talk about schools and where you go, whether it's, Flagler or Liberty or South Florida or Florida State or Florida or Tennessee or wherever. Everybody's experience is individual. So the guys that, I went and ran with at the Evil Empire, University of Florida, those are my lifetime friends. And we don't agree on football, and we don't agree on Gators versus Knowles, but those are guys that we came together as a really bad team. And in our senior years in 1979, it was my 4th year, I was a junior, we qualified for the NCAA championships together, and we're able to run against Alberto Salazar, Henry Rono, and some of the greats of the sport. Now, they crushed us, but we had that opportunity that never would have existed. And those are, we still get together every year and, have a good time and connect with our families and whatnot. So everybody's experience is individual. Tim Tebow's experience at Florida is going to be different than Joe Smith. Somebody's experience at Florida State is going to be different than it was for Jameis Winston or whoever. So generalization is dangerous. My father was a world-class chemist, environmental chemist, got his doctorate from Northwestern, one of the great schools in this country. So he could have gone anywhere he wanted to go, but he went to the University of South Florida because of the academic freedom he could do with his experimentation, work in the lab, and go out and do the things he wanted to do. And, he could have gone to a lot of places as a chemist. That was the fit for him. And my first 17 years as a coach at South Florida, I couldn't have learned or grown any more than being in that environment. We've never been where I am today without working my way from the bottom, and I mean the bottom, completely up. And so everybody's got to find their own path. And I think you're going to find it at Liberty, you're going to find it at Flagler. So everybody's experience should be that way. Generalization is not real, and so that's why you see people who do great at Oregon and get swallowed up at Oregon or Colorado or Stanford or wherever. And to blame or to crown those programs, both are incorrect. So everybody's got to find their niche, find the person that's going to light that fire. And for me, that came in high school with the guy I mentioned, Jerry Slavin. Just seemed to be a tremendous, energetic guy. He did every workout with us, and that's what I did as a coach until I got too slow for my guys at South Florida. So that was my inspiration.
Yeah, for sure. Well, like we said, again, thank you for coming on.
Appreciate you guys.
An
honor. So I guess to close this out, thank you everybody for watching. The channel has been certainly growing, and like me and Dustin always say at the end of this channel is, and what we're doing is more than just people who like to run and are good at running. It's for people from all walks of life, and just to really show how running as a sport has improved people's lives for generations, all the way starting at Mount Marathon. And so we thank you so much, Coach, for being on today. Getting your unique experience and lifetime in the sport has just been absolutely wonderful to listen to. And we hope to have more coaches on and get more experiences like this. So thank you for everybody. No new announcements for us this week, and so just look to the next podcast. And again, thank you so much, Coach. All right, see ya.
So you guys keep doing what you're doing. It's great.